So yesterday I spent all day troubleshooting the NSX here on the haltech ECU. So basically what ended up happening was no matter what I tried, I could not get this car to start. So I ended up having to pull everything out to confirm what was going on with it. So I unplugged the injectors, or a injector, and then checked the power there, and we've got pulse there. So I used my Noid light, plugged it in, cranked on it, and it got signal. So then at this point I pulled out the coil, as you can see here, and we could not get spark. So I ended up trying all sorts of different settings in the haltech, and I could not get it to start. So here's a little fun note here, is that haltech, as expensive as it is, does not have injector pulse testing or ignition coil testing unless it's like a Nexus ECU. So any elite guys, you guys don't have that functionality, which I think is really silly. Anyways, so moving on, what I ended up doing was, when we didn't have spark, I started tracing the wires, and I know all that is good. So this is the ignition control module here, and the way it works is that the NSX has a dumb coil, meaning that it's only a 2-wire coil, and then it goes to this module here, and then so the ECU sends signal here, and then it does some type of magic, and then it spits a signal to the coil, and then the coil sparked. So I checked my wiring from end to end. So I checked here inside the cabin of the car to see the actual plug and play adapter to the haltech pins, and all that is good. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to unplug the ignition control module, and we're going to try to find these connectors. And what I'm probably going to end up doing is just build a coil conversion. So we'll probably end up with R8 coils or something along the lines. You guys know how this is going to go if you watch some of our other videos. So another thing that I had found while I was going through all this is that you cannot get rear coils for an NSX at all. You can get front coils, but you can't get rear ones. OBD2 cars are different. They have different coils, and apparently you can still get those, but for the NA1 OBD1 cars, you can't get them anymore. The coils are like $200 a piece, and then this module, even like aftermarket ones, are like in the $500 range. So we could build a coil conversion kit for way cheaper than that, but it probably won't work with the stock ECU. The next problem that we've got to tackle as well is this throttle body. So the problem with this is that the idle air control valve is starting to go bad on this one, and it's a very small throttle body. Now that we're on a standalone, we can probably opt to get something a bit better. So I'm going to reach out to Magnum Powers, who makes the supercharger for Group M when they still produce this kit, to see if we're able to get either this flange or even this flange. I don't know if this is something Group M made, this piece right here, if it's something Group M made, or if it's something that Magnum Powers made, but I'm going to see if we can get this flange down here, and if not, we will probably scan this to see if we can replicate it, or even this portion here, to make a larger throttle body work with a different idle control valve. So on the NSX today, we have the haltech wideband routed already. We're going to mount this somewhere around here. We found out that the haltech doesn't play with the stock coil setup, so obviously we're going to the R8 setup like we normally do. Today what we're going to do is we're going to pull the supercharger out instead, and we will start doing the injector dynamics injector install. We'll take a look at everything else as well, just because we do have to add the flex fuel sensor. So we'll get started on that. On this side of the supercharger though, what we're going to do is we're going to delete the coolant lines here. These are just like the throttle body lines. And so the reason why we're going to do that is this throttle body actually is bad. So it has the normal Honda idle, you know, where it goes up and down, up and down. So we're going to remove all this. We're going to try to make an adapter to fit like a Ford style throttle, most likely. And another thing too is that the throttle body is actually pretty small. So once we remove the supercharger, that's going to give me more space to do all the wiring. We obviously have to do the pigtail wiring for the injectors, and then obviously route everything for the ignition coils as well. So on the ignition coil side is that these wires right here go down into the main loom, so I'm going to have to modify these. The new coils are 4-pin wires. I don't know if you guys can see that, while these are 2-pin wires. So one is power and one is the signal wire that leads up to this connector here, and then these are the wires that come out of the ECU. And again, there was a ignition control module ICM that went here, and we're just going to splice them all together essentially, so we can retain most of the wiring. And then on this end, I'll just lob these off, and then that way I can wire it into the coils, and then we get to retain this entire harness. So we'll get started on pulling this thing off and then we'll go from there. Supercharger's off, new injectors are here. Go ahead and swap those guys over. So as you can see on the wiring here, the wiring gauge is different. It's a lot thicker than the new Audi coil here. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to connect them together. We're going to start cutting all this out here and then working our way out. And then we will in turn do the flip side of it as well. And then we'll start building our new harness finally after that. Okay, so now as you can see, we've got the wires exposed now. Obviously this is signal. The white striped wires are signal, and then black yellow is power. We know that by, don't even have to look at the wiring diagram to know that, basically, because if you look, black and yellow are the exact same color while the striped wires have changed colors. So now that we have this side done, we're going to go ahead and knock out the other side and do the exact same thing. Alright, so the wires, as you can see, are all freed of their sheathing now. So what we're going to do is we're going to wipe this all down. The reason is that this wiring, or this electric tape from way back when, produces some type of like greasy feel to them. So sometimes heat shrink ends don't really adhere to them well, but a little bit of electric cleaner or even some rubbing alcohol usually does the trick. So what we're going to do is we'll lay out the coils to their respective locations, as you can see here, and then we'll start making the ends. We'll start by cutting the old connectors off completely and then making our connections. So what I'll do is clean that all up and we'll get started on making the harness. Alright, so here's the coil here. This is pin 1, this is power, then 2 is ground, 3 is signal coming from the ECU, and 4 is also ground. So what we're going to do is we're going to pair the black and green wires together into a single ground wire, and we'll run that down the valve cover to about somewhere in this area. Then it'll all join up from each coil into one singular ground, which has to ground off the cylinder head. So we're going to get started on just building just the ground side. Just making connection pigtails, if you will, because we still have to clean all this up, but we have to do the harness in sections. So here's the first one completed. I've been twisting these wires together just as of recently. I think it's a good indicator to let people know that they go together. As you can see, it goes into a single 14 gauge wire here for ground, and what we'll do is we're going to leave this a little bit long. We'll cut the excess off of it, and then we'll plug it in, and then start on the next one. Okay, I'm gonna apologize for the lighting here. My light's on the charger, but we've got one bank done as far as the grounds go. So I will put this on the coils themselves and then pull it all down, and these 3 black wires that I've made for the connections here will all join together into something that's probably like 12 gauge or so into a ring terminal. So the 3 coil wires are roughly attached, and the 3 grounds are almost the same length, and this is going to be the start of our harness here. So now all I have to do is cut and join the original power and signal wires to the new coil, the remaining 2 wires on the coil for power and signal. Okay, so this is the here is one side basically done. We've got 2 more on this bank to go. We're gonna run all the wires down with our sheathing, and then when we get to here, we'll join it with a large piece, and then of course the 3 grounds will have their own wires down here which will have its own sheath. So we're just taking care of the coil power and the signal side of it for now. All right, so that is the coil harness done on one side. I think I'm done for the night here. We just got to come in Monday and do the other bank and start cleaning this side up, but not too bad.